Time for convening having arrived. The Senate will come to order. Senate will come to order. Ask that all unauthorized visitors exit the chamber at this time. Senate will come to order. Chair recognizes the distinguished senator from the 53rd.
Mr. President, it's a beautiful day at our state capitol. I have nothing to report from history today, but the journal's been read and found to be correct.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your good works on the journal. Is there objection dispensing with the reading of the journal? Reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection? Confirmation of the journal? Chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators having bills and resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. First reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions.
Senate Bill 430 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating the office of Commissioner of Bartow County, approved July.
Slow go.
Senate Bill 431 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the governing authority of the city
Slow
of
go.
Senate Bill 432 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the governing authority of
Slow
Bartow.
go.
Senate Bill 433 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act
Slow
to
go.
Senate Bill 434 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others, a bill
Slow go.
Senate Bill 435 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others.
Slow go.
Senate Bill 436 by Senator Thompson of the 14th and others.
Slow
a bill-
go.
Senate Resolution 1131 by Senator Beach to the 21st, a resolution creating the Senate Affordability
Rules
and
Committee.
Senate Resolution 1132 by Senator Beach to the 21st, a
Rules
resolution.
Committee.
Mr. President, that completes the order.
First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions.
House Bill 1092 by Representatives Rogers of the 10th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to repeal an act creating the Habersham County Airport Authority, approved April.
Slow
20
go.
House Bill 1093 by Representatives Hightower of the 60th and others, a bill to be
Slow
entitled.
go.
House Bill 1097 by Representatives Yates of the 73rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend
Slow
an act.
go.
House Bill 1101 by Representatives Parrish of the 158th, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the governing
Slow
authority.
go.
House Bill 1102 by Representatives Dugan of the 25th and
Slow
others.
go.
House Bill 1104 by Representative Smyer of the 135th and others, a bill to be
Slow
entitled.
go.
House Bill 1105 by Representative Carson of the 46th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to authorize the governing authority of Cherokee County to levy an excise.
Slow go.
House Bill 1108 by Representative Shaw of the 176th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to create
Slow
the.
go.
House Bill 1109 by Representative Setzler of the 35th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act entitled an
Slow
act.
go.
House Bill 1111 by Representative Setzler of the 35th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Kennesaw, approved May 6, 2013, as amended so as to revise the powers and duties of.
Slow go.
Mr. President, that completes the order.
You could send it, and I guess they would get the message tomorrow. I think they've got it out. I mean, if there's a reason. It's protocol. Matter either way. Just gets it to them today if they need to be working on it, the original bill today. Yeah, if you immediately transmit, they could disagree and start that process. That would be an advantage. Yeah, I don't see any harm in doing that. Yeah. I'll make a note. I don't know what I don't see how it hurts.
Secretary will read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Assignments has had under consideration the appointments made by Governor Nathan Deal in a letter dated February 22, 2016, and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. All appointments be approved as submitted, respectfully submitted by the Honorable Casey Cagle. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had under consideration the following legislation, instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 784 due pass by substitute. House Bill 866 due pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator Bethel of the 54th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment has had under consideration the following legislation, instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 1028 due pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator Gannon, the 47th. Mr. President, the Senate State and Local Governmental Operations Committee has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 947 do pass as amended. House Bill 1083 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Albers of the 56th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Banking and Financial Institutions has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 759 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Jones of the 25th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Retirement has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 508 do pass, House Bill 605 do pass, House Bill 635 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Huffstetler of 52nd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 948 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Stone of the 23rd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Transportation has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. Senate Resolution 1085 do pass by substitute, House Resolution 1052 do pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator Gooch of the 51st. Mr. President, Senate Judiciary Committee has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 792 do pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator McCune of the 29th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 402 do pass, House Bill 884 do pass by substitute, House Bill 903 do pass, House Bill 904 do pass, House Bill 965 do pass, Senate Resolution 1091 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Bethel of the 54th. Mr. President, the Senate Special Judiciary Committee has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 804 do pass by substitute, House Bill 486 do pass, House Bill 851 do pass, House Bill 957 do pass, House Bill 1004 do pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator Thompson of the 5th. Mr. President, the Senate State and Local Governmental Operations General Committee has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 691 do pass by substitute, House Bill 856 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Albers of the 56th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 768 do pass, House Bill 763 do pass, House Bill 922 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Hill of 32nd. Mr. President, Senate Public Safety Committee has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 166 do pass, House Bill 777 do pass, House Bill 228 do pass, House Bill 1064 do pass by substitute, House Bill 727 do pass by substitute, House Bill 736 do pass by substitute, House Bill 93 do pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator Harper of the 7th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 304 do pass by substitute, House Bill 949 do pass by substitute, House Bill 979 do pass, House Bill 976 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Stone of the 23rd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Health and Human Services had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 212 do pass by substitute, House Bill 509 do pass by substitute, House Bill 765 do pass, House Bill 902 do pass, House Bill 910 do pass, House Bill 954 do pass by substitute, House Bill 943 do pass by substitute, House Bill 958 do pass by substitute, respectfully submitted by Senator Unterman of the 45th. Mr. President, the Senate Higher Education Committee has had under consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 54 do pass, House Bill 798 do pass by substitute, House Bill 801 do pass by substitute, House Bill 1072 do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Miller of the 40th. Mr. President, that completes the reports.
You get the one on the Committee on Assignments, approve the governor's.
Sorry. Secretary will read bills for the second time.
Senate Resolution 988 by Senator Stoner, 23rd. Now, the United States Congress urged to enact the Fair Tax Act. Senate Resolution 1043 by Senator Mullis, the 53rd. Expansion on autism insurance mandate, create Senate Study Committee. House Bill 34 by Representatives Dugan, the 25th, and others. Georgia Right to Try Act and Act. House Bill 219 by Representative Jones, and the 167th, and others. Health. Swimming pools exempt certain privately owned pools from inspection and licensing requirements. House Bill 555 by Representative Chandler, and the 105th, and others. Court provide reporting of certain statistics regarding juveniles seeking abortions without parental notice provisions. House Bill 579 by Representative McCall, the 33rd, and others. Motor vehicles, operation of certain vehicles upon highways and used in connection with agricultural pursuits provide. House Bill 676 by Representative Brockway, the 102nd. Accountability, Change Management, and Process Improvement Act of 2015 enact. House Bill 725 by Representative Cantrell, the 22nd, and others. Child Abuse Records Protection Act enact. House Bill 764 by Representative Powell, the 32nd, and others. Motor vehicles, drivers to stop at crosswalks with pedestrian activated rectangular rapid flash beacons required. House Bill 767 by Representative Powell, 32nd, and others. Motor vehicles, add utilities, service vehicles to the Spencer Pass law provisions. House Bill 800 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, and others. Veterinarians, veterinarian client-patient relationship, clarify scope. House Bill 806 by Representative Tanner, the 9th, and others. Driver's licenses, expiration of certain licenses and identification cards provisions. House Bill 818 by Representative Shaw, the 176, and others. Workers' compensation, insurance, awards, benefits, and administration, change certain provisions. House Bill 859 by Representative Jaspers, the 11th, and others. Firearms, weapons, carry license holders, carrying and possession of certain weapons in certain buildings of real property owned or leased to public institutions of post-secondary education authorized. House Bill 869 by Representative Powell of the 32nd, and others. Professions and businesses, responsibilities of brokers and qualifying brokers to review certain documents, change certain provisions. House Bill 883 by Representative Taylor, 173rd, and others. Insurance, insurers, rehabilitation, liquidation, change certain provisions. House Bill 887 by Representative F. Stratton, of the 104th, and others. Courts, parental rights, prioritize placement of a child with an adult or fictive kin qualified to care for such child. House Bill 944 by Representative Gilligan, of the 24th, and others. Health, pronouncement of death of patients in nursing homes who are organ donors by a physician's assistant or a registered professional nurse provide. House Bill 952 by Representative Nimmer, of the 178th, and others. Georgia Professional Regulation Reform Act and Act. House Bill 962 by Representative Abrams of the 89th, and others. Human Services Department of Creation, Appointment, Removal, and duties of a kinship care enforcement administrator provide. House Bill 970 Representative Lumpson of the 12th, and others. Fire protection and safety, issuance of certificates of compliance for fire departments, arise requirements. House Bill 975 by Representative Shaw, of the 176th, and others. Commerce and trade assets and liabilities provide certain updates to the standard valuation law. House Bill 1036 by Representative Hitchens of the 161st, and others. Eminent domain, construction of petroleum pipelines and the environmental permitting requirements, change certain provisions. House Bill 1037 by Representative Clark of the 101st, and others. Community Health Department of Certified Nurse Aid Registry to nurse aides who provide services in private residences, expand. House Bill 1085 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th, and other. Social services, aging, transfer oversight of such services to the Department of Community Health. Mr. President, that completes the order.
It is now time for the morning roll call. Time for the morning roll call. Are there motions to excuse? Senator from the 50th. 50th. Not paying attention. Senator from the 7th. 7th. Excuse the senator from the 49th. Chair recognizes Senator from the 7th.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 49th for business outside the Capitol.
49th, without objection, the senator will be excused. You were back there talking when I was trying to recognize you. Any other motions to excuse? Any other motions to excuse? Senators will, Secretary will call the roll of senators. Please signify your presence by voting the yea switch. Secretary will unlock the machine. It is now time for the morning devotion. Time for the morning devotion. Would ask that all senators please take your seats and cease all audible conversation at this time as we prepare the chamber for our morning devotion. Senators, please take your seats. All senators, please take your seats. It is now my honor to call upon the distinguished senator from the 26th to lead us in our pledge and introduce our chaplain of the day. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. Pledge it to the United States flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Georgia flag.
I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to bring a longtime friend of mine to be our minister today, Elder Benjamin Ridley. But prior to that, I'd like to introduce his daughter, Jacqueline Clowers, and a friend of hers, Twinita Grafford. Elder Ridley is the presiding elder of the North Macon District of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Elder Ridley is a lifelong resident of Jones County. He has been a member of St. James AME Church in Bradley, Georgia since childhood. He accepted his call in the ministry in 1978 and was ordained a deacon in 1979. In 1981, he was ordained as interim elder in the AME Church prior to assuming his current position. He served as pastor to several churches in the Middle Georgia area and has served as presiding elder of the AME Church for over 22 years. He was a longtime employee of Keebler Corporation and retired with 28 years of service. Elder Ridley has been married to Dorothy Ellis Ridley for over 46 years. He is the father of 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Elder Ridley is affectionately known as Brother Ben, the people's friend. He is affiliated with many churches and civic organizations in the local community. He has remained committed to the sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ as a preacher, a recording artist, and a radio announcer. What I would like to say to you, prior to him becoming a minister, he used to compete against Otis Redding at the Douglas Theater on those various shows, and then he had a couple of bands that he sang and performed. I know what our rules are, and Mr. President, but I just don't think we ought to let him get away with just giving us the little sermon, but just hit 1 or 2 notes to let them know that Macon, Georgia is still alive and well in music. Elder Ridley.
To the already established protocol and all of these distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, in fact, to Lottie Dottie and everybody, I'm glad to be here on this occasion. And David has said some words, and I want to do this right quick and do a verse of it. My latest recording about 2 years ago, a song that I wrote called Take Me, Lord, and Make Me. I know it's against the rules, David, I'm in trouble with you because of it. Thank you, Senator. Take me, Lord, and make me into what you would have me be. And when I start to falter, Lord, please keep on leading me. Lift me up much higher than I've ever been before. Let the world see in me the image of you, Lord. At times I feel so down and out. my spirit sinking low. I have no one to talk to, and there's no place I can go. I long so much for just one friend who will understand my needs. Then I lift my face towards heaven and said, Jesus, hear my plea. Oh, take me, Lord, and make me into what you would have me be. And when I start to falter, Lord, please keep on leading me. Lift me up much higher than I've ever been before. And let the world see in me the image of you, Lord. That's 1 minute and 30 seconds of it right there. My time. In the Gospel of St. John, the 8th chapter and verse 32, you'll find these words recorded. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Today we want to just talk about, I tell you the truth. Being here in front of all you distinguished people of God, it would be embarrassing to me to try to insult anyone or hurt anyone's feelings. So I suggest to all of us that you be who you are and say what you feel, because those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter. So be yourself. And that's who I am today, myself. And I start off by telling you all a story about truth and lie. This is a story. It is said that lie approached truth one day and said, you know, we don't hang out together much, but at least we ought to go swimming. And truth agreed, said, well, you set the place and name the time. Lie said at 12 noon at the city pool. And you know how a lie is. Lie got there early, 15 minutes to 12, Lie was there. Pulled his clothes off and got in the pool and started swimming. Right at 12 o'clock, Truth shows up. Looks on the bench and saw Lie's clothes, so he pulled his clothes off and got in the pool. And a lie and Truth don't stay together long. When Truth got in, Lie got out. And looked over and saw Truth's clothes and said, this is what I've been waiting on. I've been waiting on an opportunity to deceive someone. So Lie took Truth's clothes and put them on and went out in the street deceiving people. When Truth got out and discovered that Lie had taken his clothes, he said, before I put on Lie's clothes, I will go naked. And everybody looked up and said, that's the naked truth with no clothes on. Said, that's the naked truth without clothes. So I said to you today a true story. There was a man that learned a lesson. His name was Mr. John Davison Rockefeller. Rockefeller wrote The Great American Dream. He drove himself hard to be a success. He became a millionaire by the age of 23. And by the age of 50, was the richest man on earth. Can you imagine being a millionaire at the age of 23 with all the access to money that you need to buy anything that you want? And he struggled hard with that company. Some of y'all may remember Standard Oil. He became a millionaire by the age of 23, and at 50, he was a billionaire, the only one in the world at that time. But at age 53, Mr. Rockefeller's health was destroyed by some type of disease. All of his eyelashes fell out. His hair came out. His mustache wouldn't grow. He couldn't sleep. And the only thing that he could digest was milk and crackers. The doctors gave him 1 year to live. He looked like a mummy, in bad shape. Couldn't sleep. One night, however, as he struggled to fall asleep, he came to grips with with his own life. He realized that he could take nothing into the next world. The next day, he embarked on a new way of living. Rather than harboring all of his money and possession, he began to give the money and his possessions away, establishing the next day the Rockefeller Foundation. He challenged his fortune into hospitals, research, and mission work. He contributed to a whole lot of charity to diseases, and as a result of his generous donation, penicillin, cures for malaria, tuberculosis, and diphtheria, and other diseases were cured. And that's when God stepped in. When he saw that he was not trying to take the principle of keeping everything for himself, but was giving it away. Not only did God approve his health and bring him out of his misery, he allowed him to live to the right old age of 98 years. So I say to you today, as I take my seat, there is something that it is impossible to do. You may have never heard anyone else say it, and you may never hear it again. But I say to you today, there is one thing that it is impossible to do, and that is go wrong doing right. I said to all of you sinners today and myself, if you do what's right, you'll never go wrong. Let us pray. Lord God Almighty, defend our land which we beseech from the secret powers of open disgrace and from shame and from national sin. Bless everyone here today. Open their understanding. You've been good to us. Give them knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to do what is right in your sight, because we'll never go wrong doing what's right. And if it be your will, O Heavenly Father, let us hide behind the cross, and you cover us with your blood. Keep us in the center of your will is our prayer. And all the people affirmed it by saying, amen.
let you know today about the special presentation about the scholars. There's some kind of waiting list. I don't think it was. My memory serves. I can get you that. This may have been the third one. I think you're we'll get it now.
Senator from the 18th. Recognize Senator from the 18th.
Good morning, Senators, and good morning, folks in the gallery. It's my pleasure to welcome y'all to the Senate. We've got some special guests for me in the Senate. Today is the first time since I was sworn in last year that my wife is with us, and Susan, who works for Communities in Schools at Howard High School, is from there, and she's got about 15 kids, and she's in the upper area of the gallery, and we've got some great kids that are with Communities in Schools and Gear Up, and they're fine juniors and sophomores at Howard High School, and we're delighted to have them in the Senate. Y'all give them a great Senate welcome, would you?
All right. Very good.
Thank you, Mr.
It's
President.
always a pleasure to welcome the First Lady from the 18th District here to the chamber. Thank you very much for being here and your fine group of students as well. Are there any unanimous consents? We'd like to present the Doctor of the Day, and to do so, it's my honor to call upon the Senator from 36.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, I'm very pleased to bring to you our Doctor of the Day, LaJune E. Oliver, MD. Dr. Oliver is a board-certified family medicine physician and obesity medicine specialist. She's with Kaiser Permanente, and this is her first time at the Capitol. She currently serves as the Ambulatory Medicine Physician Program Director for Quality with Kaiser, and her passion is promoting healthy lifestyles and prevention to her patients and the broader community. She was most recently appointed last year by Governor Deal to the State Bariatric Surgery Pilot Review Panel Board. She is a Georgian through and through. She was born here, and she went on to receive her medical degree from the Medical College of Georgia and completed her internship and residency at Emory University School of Medicine. She enjoys traveling, and of course her greatest joy in life, spending time with her 2 children that she's raising in Southwest Atlanta. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Oliver as our Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Senator Orrock, for that introduction, Mr. President, Senator Orrock, and to the rest of the senators. It is my pleasure to serve as your Doctor of the Day. As you heard, I am a native Georgia Peach, and so I thank you for the work and the dedication that you have for the citizens of the state of Georgia. Again, thank you. Enjoy your day.
Have a special group we'd like to recognize. Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 1135 by Senator Tippins of the 37th, the resolution recognizing and commending the students, coaches, and staff involved with the inaugural football season at Kennesaw State University and for other purposes. Whereas, on February 14, 2013, University President Dr. Dan Papp made the long-awaited announcement that football would be coming to Kennesaw State University. And whereas the team had its inaugural National Signing Day on February 5, 2014, signing Chandler Burks, South Paulding High School quarterback, as the program's first verbal commitment and the Owls' first signee. And whereas Brian Bohannon made his head coaching debut on September 3rd after being hired as head coach. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend the students, coaches, and staff of the Kennesaw State University Owls football team for a job well done on its inaugural football season and extend best wishes for continued success. Senate Resolution 1136 by Senator Tippins of the 37th, a resolution recognizing and commending Dr. Thomas Curran, Dean of the College of Southern Polytechnic College of Engineering and Engineering Technology at Kennesaw State University, and students Valerie Washington and Kurt Jacobson for earning 3 of the top 6 annual awards from the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers and for other purposes. Whereas Ms. Washington has been named the Georgia Engineering Student of the Year for 2016, and whereas Mr. Jacobson was named the Georgia Engineering Technology Student of the Year. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Kennesaw State University Dean Thomas Curran and Kennesaw State University students Valerie Washington and Kurt Jacobson on their trifecta of engineering accolades earned by receiving 3 of the top 6 annual awards from the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair is none. The resolution is adopted. We are very, very proud of Kennesaw State and all the great work that the university does and the great leadership of Dr. Dan Pat as well. It's my honor now to call upon the distinguished senator from the 37th to recognize our special guests and speak to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce the delegation from Kennesaw State. We have 2 special resolutions this morning honoring individuals who have received especially high acclaim and brought great honor to Kennesaw State. I want to introduce Dr. Dan Papp to speak to these 2 resolutions and introduce the people from Kennesaw State. Dr. Papp came in 2006. He's done an excellent job as president of KSU. They now have an enrollment of over 33,000. Dr. Papp has led Kennesaw through the successful merger of Southern Polytechnic and KSU. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Papp to speak to us. Give him a warm Senate welcome, please.
Thank you, Senator Tippins. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Cagle. And thanks to everyone in the Senate for all of the wonderful support that you provide for Kennesaw State University and also for the entire university system of Georgia. I've been in the university system of Georgia for wow, this is my 42nd year already, and throughout these 42 years in the university system of Georgia, the state legislature of Georgia has been an absolutely wonderful supporter of the USG. So thank you on behalf of all of us. I would like to introduce formally a few of the people who are standing on the stage behind me. First, Kurt, who is the Georgia Engineering Technology Student of the Year. Kurt? Yeah. Valerie, who is the Engineering Student of the Year, Valerie Washington. Dean Tom Curran, Dean of the Southern Polytechnic College of Engineering and Engineering Technology of Kennesaw State University. Dean Curran. Coach Brian Bohannon, coach of our football team at KSU, which finished its first season ever with a 6-5 winning record. Coach Bohannon. And we also have 4 graduating senior football players up in the gallery. Guys, stand up, wave to everybody. Our first class of graduating football players. Athletic Director Vaughn Williams. Vaughn. Vice President for Economic Development and Community Engagement, Charles Ross. Charles. And Associate Vice President for Economic Development and Community Engagement, Amanda Seals. We also have a significant number of other students and supporters up in the gallery. Will you all this time please stand and say hello to the Senate? Just a few quick words on some of the great things that have been happening at Kennesaw State University. In 2013, the University System of Georgia designated Kennesaw State a comprehensive university, which was a promotion in class. In 2014, Southern Poly and Kennesaw State spent the whole year working toward and succeeding in accomplishing our consolidation. In 2015 was our first football season ever, and then earlier this year, at the end of February, the Carnegie Foundation designated Kennesaw State a research university. So it's been a heck of a ride at Kennesaw State. We have wonderful students, wonderful faculty and staff, and we are pleased to be in Georgia, where we have a wonderful state senate as well. Thank you for everything that you do to help us and to help the entire university system.
All right, let's get a picture, guys. Good job. Well done, man. That was awesome. Let's come down and get a picture on the stage. Good. I would like to also recognize the senator from the 25th. His lovely mom is present with us today. Glad to have her with us. Glad she left that sorry husband of hers at home as well, I'll tell you. So great having you with us as well. We have another special recognition we would like to do at this time. Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 1076 by Senators Davenport of the 44th, James of the 35th, Sims of the 12th, Fort of the 39th, Butler of the 55th, and others. A resolution recognizing the Atlanta chapter of the National Alumni Association of Spelman College and for other purposes. Whereas the Atlanta chapter of the National Alumni Association of Spelman College began in August 1914 when several Spelman graduates met at the home of Miss Mary James Wardlaw, who would become its first president. And whereas focus on sisterhood is and has been integral to the functioning of the Atlanta chapter, demonstrated by class reunions that bring together sisters from across generations and around the world, and the annual April meeting of local alumni gathered with the president of the college. And whereas, in addition to supporting local charities at their annual brunch, the Atlanta chapter recognizes and honors Atlanta residents for their leadership in the community with the Outstanding Community Service Award. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend the Atlanta chapter of the National Alumni Association of Spelman College for their dedicated public service to the state of Georgia. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. It is my honor now to recognize the senator from the 44th to recognize our very, very special guest here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, I am so honored to recognize the National Alumni Association of Spelman College, the Atlanta chapter, and the Decatur chapter. Spelman College is a four-year liberal arts women's college located right here in Atlanta, Georgia, and part of the Atlanta University Center Academic Consortium. It was founded in 1881, and Spelman College thus holds the distinction of being America's oldest historically black college for women. Now, the Decatur chapter was formed in 1987 as the first suburban chapter of NAASC. The Decatur chapter gives annual gifts to Spelman in the form of an established scholarship fund and individual book awards. The Atlanta chapter began in August of 1914, over 100 years ago. I'm so honored to be a member of that chapter. The Atlanta chapter has continued to be active in many service projects, including the Christmas celebrations at nursing homes, Christmas season adoptive family project, the United Way Shoebox project that provides toiletries for homeless women, and donations of clothing appropriate for work to homeless women seeking jobs, and donation of school supplies to the Atlanta public school system. It also provides scholarships. And one of our major scholarship recipients many years ago was Now, Representative Stacey Abrams, the minority leader in the House of Representatives, the first woman and the first African American that we're so proud of as an alum of Spelman College. So I'm just so honored today to have them join us here in the Georgia State Senate. With me on the roster today is the first alum to serve in the Georgia General Assembly, the attorney, all these astute attorneys, Attorney Henrietta Turnquest, and then the second woman to serve in the Georgia General Assembly, former representative and former judge, Betty Ann Hart. We have, I'll give her a hand. We have the president of the Atlanta chapter, Ms. Pamela Cooper, and the president of the Decatur chapter, Ms. Diane Rowe, my good friend here. And then we have Ms. Andrea Hightower, raise your hand. And then we have one of our golden girls. That means, Diamond daughter, excuse me. She graduated from Spelman College in 1949. Give her a big hand. Earlier this week, the Women's Caucus honored women here from around the state. And in District 44, Ms. Jamie White was my honoree. Give her a big hand. She's a community activist. She belongs to Clifton United Methodist Church and the Monterey neighborhood subdivision. She was had me speaking at the Neighborhood Association on Monday night, but said she would be here bright and early Tuesday, and then she's back today. She has more energy than all of us. Give her a big hand. Now we're gonna have the president just to say thank you from the Atlanta chapter.
Good morning, and what a pleasure it is to be here at our Capitol, as we are so proud of our Spelman sisters, Senator Gail Davenport, Representative Whip Stacey Abrams. Spelman, we say, it's a choice to change the world, and that's what we seek to do. So on behalf of the National Alumni Association of Spelman College, the Atlanta and Decatur chapter, we just want to thank you for extending this time and just recognizing us. Our mission is to actually educate and continue to serve our communities best we can. And so we're just, once again, such a privilege to have the legacy and the history of our former representatives, Betty Ann Hart and Henrietta Turnquest, as well as those who serve us currently, Senator Davenport and Representative Abrams. Once again, thank you on behalf of our chapter.
Thank you. All right, wonderful. Let's step on, let's go down on the steps and do a picture together, all right? We have another special guest we would like to recognize, and the secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 832 by Senators Fort of the 39th, Tate of the 38th, Henson of the 41st, Butler of the 55th, C of the 34th, and others. A resolution honoring the life and memory of Mr. Julian Bond and for other purposes. Whereas the state of Georgia mourns the loss of one of its most distinguished citizens with the passing of Mr. Julian Bond, a former Georgia State representative and senator. And whereas, having co-authored the Appeal for Human Rights at age 20, Mr. Bond began his civil rights activism at an early age. And whereas Mr. Bond organized the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus and his name was entered as a candidate for Vice President of the United States during the 1968 Democratic National Convention, the first time for any African American. And whereas in 1975 he was elected to the Georgia Senate and served until 1987. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body join in honoring the life and memory of Mr. Julian Bond and express their deepest and most sincere regret at his passing. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The resolution is adopted. It is a great, great honor to have the family of a wonderful, wonderful individual that is present with us, a former colleague, speak to the resolution and recognize our special guest. It is now my honor to call upon the distinguished senator from the 39th.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. It is always a great experience to honor constituents, but this is unique for me, and I think it's unique for the Senate because we, this morning, honor one of our own. Julian Bond was a great American hero. He sacrificed his time, energy, and resources to make Georgia a better state, this country a better place for all people. And that's why, upon his death last year, we were hurt and we miss him even as we speak. I first met him as a young teenager back home. For an African-American kid from a small town, the number of role models were few. But to hear Julian Bond, to hear his voice, to hear his eloquence was to inspire me. And that's why it is one of the enduring honors of my career to sit in the seat occupied by Julian Bond. I came to Atlanta in 1978 as a young graduate student and was able to interview Julian Bond. And I would say that he had a great impact on this city. As one of the students who organized the Atlanta student movement in 1960, he helped transform this city. And then as a state representative and a state senator, he helped to transform this body. Some of you may know that he was denied his seat in the state house because of his views on Vietnam. We believe that his views have been vindicated. If he had done just that, he would have been important. But he stayed on the battlefield. He came over here to the Senate and then went on to become a civil rights legend. We have his family here, members of his family. We have City Council member Michael Julian Bond. We have Jeffrey Bond and Phyllis Bond, and we also have friends of Julian Bond here this morning. So we are thrilled to have them in our presence. We miss him, but we know that we build on his legacy each and every day. I'm going to ask Michael Julian Bond to come and say a few words about his father.
Thank you, Senator. Well, I want to say good morning, Senators. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle. Thank you for welcoming myself and my family here today. We're also joined by a good friend of our family and my father, Judge Gary Jackson from the Atlanta Municipal Court. It's always good to have the judge with you, right? So he was my father was a mentor to him, and Judge Jackson credits his activism and participation in the political process with a speech that my father, they brought him to UGA when he was a student there, and he credits my father for setting a fire underneath him. And there are a lot of good friends here. Oh man, look at all these folks. Abel, Mabel, Harsina, Nan, and Donzella. Donzella tried to bring Daddy here many times over the years, and the schedules never worked out. And of course, I'm joined by my elder sister, Phyllis Bond McMillan, and my brother, Jeffrey. We literally grew up in this building because of our father, because of his public service here. He loved being elected. He loved serving the people in the House, but particularly in the Senate. I believe that he felt that he did his best work in his his electoral work here in the Senate. We were here literally year-round when you all recessed in the spring. He maintained his office down, I think it's Suite 124? 121. He had the office that faced the parking lot out there on Mitchell Street. He originally shared an office with former Governor Roy Barnes, and Zell Miller's office was right across from there, and then he roomed with David Scott for a while. He had a great sense of humor. He loved the activities of the Senate and participating here. About 40 years ago, they were having the bicentennial celebrations here in the Senate, and Roy leaned over to him, and everyone was dressed in the bicentennial garbs and bicentennial ceremony, and my father had a very wry wit, and so Roy asked him, he said, "Julian, where's your bicentennial costume?" And so my father leaned back over and says, "Roy, I didn't have any change that fit." That's a joke, you can laugh. It's very funny. But they had a great kinship, and he had many friendships that might seem unusual on the outside, like with Mike Egan, like with Senator Coverdale, with Johnny Isaacson, Lorenzo Ben, who passed on, Senator Tate, many friends here that did a lot of good work on behalf of the citizens of Georgia. And so on behalf of my family, we want to thank you. My father was once called the conscience of the Senate, because he believed in looking out for the least of these and speaking truth to power. And so as you all honor him today, I would simply just implore you to remember that call. There are many ghosts in these buildings, but please remember the spirit to speak truth to power on behalf of your former colleague, the former senator from the 39th District. So on behalf of the Bond family, we want to sincerely thank you for taking a few minutes to honor him. Thank you for remembering him, but please, we are humbled by it. We miss him every day, but he's not really missed if the work and the spirit of what he does lives. So please help him to live in service to the citizens of Georgia and through your work. Well, you say I can talk, across the street. A little bit. But thank you very much. We're deeply moved and deeply appreciative.
Let's do a picture on the steps. Yeah, well done. Well done.
With your dad and your grandfather.
All right, let's go down the steps and we'll do a picture together.
Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 1047 by Senators James of the 35th, Rhett of the 33rd, Orrock of the 36th, Parent of the 42nd, Davenport of the 44th, and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Ms. Demacia Howard and for other purposes. Whereas Ms. Demacia Howard, an esteemed resident of Union City, Georgia, and a student at Georgia Cyber Academy, has achieved national recognition for exemplary volunteer service by receiving a 2016 Prudential Spirit of Community Award. And whereas Ms. Howard earned this award by generously dedicating her time and energy to collecting thousands of books in her community for students in Africa, working with a national charity called Books for Africa. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Ms. Demacia Howard for her dedicated service to her community and state. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair is none. The resolution is adopted. It is a great honor to welcome our special guest here, and to do so, I call upon the distinguished senator from the 35th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, you know, we have some great young people that live in the state of Georgia. Some outstanding young people. And Demesia, a 7th grader at Georgia Cyber Academy, one of our new charter schools, has collected thousands of books for her community for students in Africa. She was the 2015 Miss Georgia preteen spokesmodel. And her school gave her an opportunity to do a project. So she started by packing up books out of her own collection and then asking others for books, and she sent books to Africa. She became our number 2, it's 2 state honorees as volunteers for the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards. So without further ado, I would like to present her to just say a few words. She's joined by her principal, and we thank you for the good work that you're doing at the Cyber Academy. Come forward, and her mother and father and aunt.
To Governor Dill, Lieutenant Governor Cagle, Senator James, and to all of the outstanding legislators of Georgia General Assembly. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to you all for this historic moment in my life, one that I will be able to share with my family, peers, and generations to come. It is my desire to be a mentor and a role model to all young people that I meet, inspiring them to strive to reach their goals, take some time to help someone along the way, and to dream fearlessly. It is indeed an honor to be here today to receive this resolution, and I will continue to do my very best to make God, my family, my school, Georgia Cyber Academy, and my city, my state proud. Again, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to present you with this resolution, and we are honored to present it to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you do. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mommy and Daddy, for raising such a beautiful young lady. Okay.
Who's next? Secretary will read a resolution.
Senate Resolution 909 by Senator Black of the 8th, a resolution commending Mr. Eddie B. Tucker and for other purposes. Whereas, with the help of his family, he conducted a major farming operation raising livestock and growing vegetables, always sharing his livestock and crops with neighbors, teaching them about farming, and encouraging other farmers. And whereas, even today, Mr. Tucker and his family continue the traditions of caring and sharing. Each year since the early 1900s, the Tucker family selects a Saturday in December and provides a day full of home-cooked Southern dining, fellowship, and fishing for more than 400 attendees. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend Mr. Eddie B. Tucker for his exemplary commitment to his community and convey to him their respect, appreciation, and best wishes for his future pursuits. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair is none, and the resolution is adopted. To speak to the resolution and recognize our special guest, it's my privilege now to call upon the distinguished senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had hoped to have these people up here back during February when we were having African American History Month, but their scheduled hours just couldn't make it happen. But one of the things that hadn't been said here lately is that back during the 50s and 60s, when this country was finally addressing some of the great injustices and prejudices that we had inherited, we went through a lot of strife and a lot of violence, and one of the things that we as Georgians can take great pride in is that in spite of all the injustice, we had less of it to deal with. We had less violence, and we got through that era a whole lot better than some of our other states. And those of us down in Lowndes County take great pride in the fact that we got through that era with probably the least amount of problems of any community, certainly of our size, that I know. And that became possible because we had leadership in both the black and the white community that realized that it was better for us to work together than fight each other. And today, I have the pleasure of bringing to you a great American, one of our local leaders that has been, for his entire life, been working for the betterment of our community for all people. And this is especially precious to me because this fella comes from down on our area on a farm that's both on Tucker Road, and they've got property that confronts Jumping Gully Road. And for 5 generations, there's been Tuckers down there living on that farm. And right next to them, there's been 5 generations of people by the name of Black. And you couldn't ask for any better neighbors than the people that I have here today. And at this time, I'm going to call on the Tucker of my generation, his elder son, to come in and make a few comments about Mr. Eddie B. Tucker. And at this time, I want Jerome to come up and make a few comments.
Thank you, Senator Black. Giving praise to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Give honor to the elected officials of the great state of Georgia, Governor Nathan Deal and Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle. Giving honor to each of you, the elected members of this chamber. And special appreciation and praise for our neighbor and friend, Senator Ellis Black, and his wife, Aletha, for arranging this event. A good leader motivates, doesn't mislead, doesn't exploit. Proverbs 16:10. On behalf of the Eddie B. Tucker family and friends, and there's 4 generations of Eddie B. Tucker's family in this chamber today, we are eternally grateful for the honor and respect you are showing our father, grandfather, uncle, great-grandfather, neighbor, and friend this morning. Eddie was a husband of one woman for more than 60 years, has been and still is a community advocate for fairness. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army. He's been a farmer, a counselor, and an advisor to any and all that requires any of these needs. Raising his family, he would not allow us to focus on failures. He taught us to help people, not to pity them. He taught us to love people, not to hate them. He taught us to try and understand others, not disregard them. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image and our likeness." Genesis 1:26. All I've ever wanted to be was to be like Dad. His life and legacy shows us what is required to have a godly impact on those around him. Dad was committed to doing what was right, not on being popular. We live in a broken world. Sometimes doing right is not popular. Pop has never been afraid to share his faith in God with others. Like the Apostle Paul, Pop welcomed the opportunity to tell people about Christ. At one time, he was holding Bible studies in our barn. He has always been a loving father that seemed to understand all that we were going through as children and kept us pointed in the right direction. The most powerful message Pop has given has been the life he has lived. When the pressure was on, when temptation was huge, or when he was buried under a pile of trouble, he remained steady and consistent. Our message today is that we continually attempt to be a godly family, loving one another, be business people, working with integrity, and men and women who choose morality. The world needs to be exposed to believers who are obedient. While not perfect, Dad has done everything necessary for all of us to be God-fearing, moral, just, productive, loving, forgiving, and neighborly. Ellis and I grew up in the same generation. You can tell by looking at us, that was just a couple of weeks ago. But his dad, James Blake, and my dad, Eddie Tucker, when it was not politically correct for two families, two different races, to decide among themselves to connect a water line between houses that was 1/8 of a mile apart. When at that time there were still white and colored water fountains. But here's a black family and a white family decided that water, connecting the wells together, so that if one well went dry, both families still had water. Ellis and I laugh about this sometimes because neither one of us can remember if anybody ever removed that line, and today that would be called a community water system. And you would have to get a permit from EPD to do such. But that was back in the 50s and 60s, and just two men decided this was the right thing to do. The other thing that we as Tuckers do, and you have to talk with Senator Blake to get an invitation, but the second Saturday of December, we do a community cookout. We understand and we realize how blessed we've been as a family. And we feed between 400 and 600 people. There's no program, there's no agenda. We just tell folks to show up and look like you belong and nobody will question it. And somehow we've always managed to feed everybody that shows up. Thank you again for honoring our father from the depth of our hearts. God bless you. God bless the great state of Georgia. And God bless the USA. Thank you.
Senator from the 35th will be recognized.
I thank you very much, Mr. President. Today is Georgia Council of Chiropractic Day. And they will be serving lunch at 11:30 in room 125. So everybody is invited to go and meet your chiropractor. We passed a resolution 1101 last week, proclaiming that this is the Georgia Council of Chiropractic Day, March 10th, 2016. And they are here. Many of them are still in the gallery. So let us give them a warm Senate welcome, and thank you so much. And the president was supposed to be standing right here. I don't see him, but we have the resolution for him when he gets back into the Senate. We thank you for keeping us adjusted and for everything that you do for the state of Georgia. Thank you very much. And again,
absolutely glad to have y'all with us. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Any senator wishing to rise on a point of personal privilege? Senator from the 44th light is on, but I do not see her at the present time. Any members? Moving on, there's a consent calendar of privilege resolutions that is before you. Is there objection to agreeing to the privilege resolutions? Chair is none, and the privilege resolutions are therefore adopted. Is there any motions to withdraw or commit? Any motions to withdraw or commit? Moving on to the local consent calendar, Mr. Secretary, are there any filed objections?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed to the local consent calendar.
Is there objection to agreeing to report a committee on the state and local governmental operations, which fair will pass the bill? Chair is none. Report of committee is agreed to. All those in favor of the local consent calendar will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will unlock the machine. Voting on the local consent calendar. Chair recognizes Senator on the 41st.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I rise for a point of personal privilege, and I appreciate your allowing me to do so. Just want to recognize that today, March 10th, I'm putting in a resolution that would make it King David Grand Lodge Day of the Masons. King David Grand Lodge of Georgia, ancient accepted Scottish rite, Freemason Day for other purposes. And we have Grand Master Frederick L. McHenry to my right, Congressman Hank Johnson, that you all know, and others, Grand Master Gregory Branch, Deputy, and others who are members of the Masons there in Lithonia area. We appreciate all they do for their community, all they do for public service and the goodwill of men and brotherhood around the world. Thank you so much. Thank you.
On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 43 and the nays are 3, and these bills have received requisite constitutional majority. It's therefore adopted. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to suspend the Senate Rule 3-3.1 so the Senate may consider the confirmation of the governor's appointments.
Is there objection?
I've got a few more motions. Y'all just have to wait over there.
Are y'all objecting too? Don't object to the rule. We don't object to the rule. Okay. But we do want to debate it briefly. All right. The senator from the 31st has objected and to suspend the rule to take up the governor's appointees. It is debatable. Senator from the 31st, you wish to be recognized to debate the, no. Who wishes to speak on your behalf? Senator from the 41st will be recognized. You recognize?
President, parliamentary inquiry. Is this debate suspending the rules to allow it to be taken up? I would like, or the Senator for the 39th would like to discuss the actual appointments, but we don't want to debate whether it's allowed to be coming up at this time.
Yeah. We're just, you'll have that moment. This is just to suspend the rules to take it up. So you'll have that opportunity. You can express your views. All of those in favor will rise, stand, and be counted. You are voting to suspend the rule in order to take up the governor's appointees. Reverse, reverse. On, on the passage of the motion, or on the motion, the yeas are 26, the nays are 11, and the rules have been suspended to take up the governor's appointees. Now the chair recognizes Senator from the 46th again.
Consent that the reading of the governor's appointments be dispensed with, and that one roll call suffice for all appointments, unless any senator designates any appointee to be removed from the list and voted on individually.
Senators moving that we take up all of the nominees as one. Is there objection? Without objection, we will take up all of the appointees as one. Chair now recognizes Senator from the 46th, the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the governor's appointments be adopted as submitted.
Senator has moved, and now it would be time for debating that matter. Senator from the 41st will be 39th will be recognized to speak to the motion.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I rise to speak to the governor's appointments. And just to reinforce a message that I have brought to this body before when it comes to the appointments by the governor. We often ask for appointments to reflect the state. That is, appointments should look like the people that populate the state. African Americans, Latinos, and Asians make up almost 43% of the state, depending on what measurement, what database you're using. 43%. Georgia is a diverse state. It is no longer a bilateral state or a biracial state, black and white. It is black, white, brown, and yellow. And that's a good thing. Diversity helps us in this new age economy. Diversity is the pattern of the present and the future. So 43%. By our analysis, by the analysis that we have done in the minority party, the people of color are only 11%. 11% of the governor's appointments. 3% Asian, 7% African American, and 1% Latino by our measure, by our research. And so, you know, we have come to this well before, as I've said. One time I came to the well, and I used one figure, about 90-something%, and the newspaper, PolitiFact, corrected me. And the newspaper corrected me and said he was off by 1%. And I may be off. These numbers, you know, are numbers that we have done through research, checking databases. But the fact of the matter is, these appointments, these almost 200 appointments, do not reflect Georgia. And I would submit to you that we are all the worse for that. By the way, women make up more than 50% of the population and are less than 50% of the appointments. Mr. President, the chamber is a little bit noisy, Mr. President. But that being the case, I'll just try to speak a little bit louder. But, you know, we can do better than this. We can do better than this. And I would implore the governor to search out ways and to work with the minority party and to work with organizations, work with trade organizations for people of color and improve this record, because the state of Georgia is not done well by this kind of disparity. Disparity in appointments has been something that we've had a problem with for a long time. We continue to have it. We can do better in Georgia. Mr. President, I yield the well. Unless there are questions, and I'd be glad to take whatever questions my colleagues may have for me.
Thank you, Senator. Hold on, I'm sorry, you do have a question. Chair recognizes Senator from the 2nd for a question.
Senator, do you yield?
Yes, I yield to the senator from Chatham County.
Of these appointments, how many are minority?
Out of the state of Georgia, where 43% of the state are people of color, Asians, blacks, Latinos, our reckoning has that 11%. So it's about 400% off.
Okay, does the senator,
11 to 40%.
Does the senator further yield?
I do.
Of that, how many are women?
45% are women.
And of the appointments?
By our reckoning, 45% of the governor's appointments, the governor's nominees for 2016 are women.
Okay. Does the senator further yield?
Absolutely.
Do you know approximately how many African Americans are there in this great state?
Yeah, African Americans make up about 30% of the population of the state of Georgia. And in this, in our reckoning, only 7% of the appointments are African Americans. So 7% versus 30%.
Does that represent an adequate representation of this state, this 7%, in your opinion, Senator?
No, on its face, it is unfair, and it does not, the governor's nominees for this year, 2016, are not in line with the population. All I'm suggesting is that the appointments ought to look like Georgia. The appointments ought to look like the people of the state of Georgia, and it doesn't. It is sorely lacking.
One final question, Senator, if you may.
Yes.
Is there any geographic diversity in these appointments?
Senator.
Are they from any from South Georgia?
Senator from the 2nd, we have not done that geographic research. I would not be surprised if there was regional disparity, but we have not looked at that.
Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome.
No further questions, Senators. All of those in favor of the governor's appointees confirming will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the governors, on the confirmation of the governor's appointees, the yeas are 41 and the nays are 8, and all of the governor's appointees have now been confirmed by the Georgia State Senate. Let me have your attention for just a moment. We have a special guest I would like to recognize. Derek Kiango is with us today, and he heads up the Center for Civil and Human Rights. I had the opportunity to attend a basketball game with Derek, and he is absolutely a remarkable individual, and I really am privileged to call him a friend. He's a sharp dresser as well, but he also is just a great human being. And so it's my honor now to welcome to the State Senate our good friend and the director of the Center of Civil and Human Rights, Derek Kiango. Okay, all right, good. We'll let you say it. Before we do that, we've got a resolution we'd like to read.
Senate Resolution 998 by Senators Orrock of the 36th, Tate of the 38th, Henson of the 41st, Fort of the 39th, Rhett of the 33rd, and others. A resolution recognizing Mr. Derek Kiango and congratulating him upon his appointment as the new CEO of the Center for Civil and Human Rights and for other purposes. Whereas Mr. Kiango and his family fled a civil war in Uganda and settled in Kenya as refugees. And whereas after immigrating to the United States, he founded the Global Soap Project, a program which takes partially used soap from hotels, recycles them into new bars of soap, and redistributes the bars to vulnerable populations around the world. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend Mr. Derek Kiango for his work in improving communities around the globe and congratulate him upon his appointment as the CEO of the Center for Civil and Human Rights. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Chair recognizes now Senator from the 36th to speak to the resolution.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'm so pleased to add my few words to those of our Lieutenant Governor. He really has said it all. The Center for Civil and Human Rights, located in downtown Atlanta in District 36, is a landmark that's becoming known not only nationally but internationally, as has been launched and had a 10-year period of building and raising money, and now houses and welcomes guests from all across the world. The thrilling thing about the guest that we have today is that he comes from that world. He comes from the international world of refugees and people aspiring for democracy. The brilliant opportunity to hire Derek Kiango to head up as the new CEO of the Center for Civil and Human Rights is going to bring great things to that center, to our city, and to the nation. You heard in the resolution that he is a refugee fleeing a civil war in Uganda who went on to be a graduate of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University and launched the founder of the Global Soap Project. He's been recognized nationally and internationally for recycling U.S. hotel soap and distributing it to over 90 countries in the third world. He has been at the American Friends Service Committee, at Amnesty International as a regional director, at CARE International. To know him is to love him. And the indomitable spirit of a refugee fleeing civil war who comes to this nation and makes the kind of mark as an entrepreneur, a leader, a visionary who brings joy to every task he undertakes. There's nothing but good things ahead for our Center for Civil and Human Rights, Atlanta, and our state as a whole. So let me ask you to join with a warm welcome for Derek Kiango and his guests Joe Iorochi, A.J. Robinson, Fatima Imba, and Macia Williams. Please welcome Derek Kiango.
Distinguished Governor, Senator Orrock, thank you so much for this humbling opportunity. I want to do a couple of things. One is to say how humbled I am to be part of this incredible state of Georgia. I have two kids, Kevin and Lauren, who are Georgians. I'm raising some good Georgian peaches with me, and they're going to be great Americans. But I also wanted to say something important about the Center for Civil and Human Rights. That is something that you have given not just the state of Georgia, but you've given this country and the world gumption by fighting to allow people like myself to have rights. I have in my hands an American passport. I can now, for the first time, say I'm an American citizen because I was being given I've been given the luxury of not living under dictatorship as a former Ugandan. But also, I've been given the right to vote. I voted in this country for the first time in my life. I've never voted in my own country of Uganda. Why? Because you, as Americans, and especially in Georgia, fought for that civil right. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. I wanted to dedicate this particular session to my mother and father, Tom Kayongo, and Marge Campbell, an American missionary who came to Africa to help me as a refugee. Marge passed away as she helped me in Kenya. And for that, I'm really grateful. And Governor, I really thank you so much for your kindness and for the basketball game. Hopefully our sons can play ball sometime. Madam Senator, thank you so much. For AJ, thank you for hiring me and for giving me the chance. Georgia, thank you for being kind to my family, and God bless America.
Well done, well done. Appreciate it. That's great, that's great. Let's do a picture down on the steps here. We are ready to move on to the general calendar, and the Secretary will read House Bill 844. Before you read, let me recognize Hank Johnson, Congressman Hank Johnson. Glad to have you with us, Seth. Thank you very much. Glad to have him here on the Senate floor.
House Bill 844 by Representatives Maxwell, the 17th, and others, a bill to be entitled in Action Amendment Chapter 7 of Title 47 of the OCGA relating to the Georgia Firefighters Pension Fund so as to update certain provisions related to determining which insurance premiums are subject to taxation related to the fund, to provide that venue for any action brought in the Superior Court against the fund or the board shall be in the Superior Court of the board's county, to repeal conflicting laws and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee of the Senate on Retirement recommends that this bill do pass, respectfully submitted by Senator Huffstetler, the 52nd. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Let me get the Senate's attention for a moment as we welcome Congressman Hank Johnson here and have him say a few words to greet the Senate.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant Governor. My brothers and sisters, it is great to be with you today. There's so much important work that the American people are looking at us to do to make their lives better. People are just a little unhappy right now, and they're looking for guidance. They're looking for the right way to be able to establish a more peaceful and prosperous life for themselves, and that's what our responsibility is to help them achieve that. And so I know that here in Georgia, I was in Birmingham, Alabama this past weekend, and I looked at Birmingham and I said, Birmingham could have been Atlanta, or conversely, Atlanta could have been Birmingham if we didn't once upon a time handle our business differently. If we had not handled our business the way we handled it back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, we would be Birmingham. And so our challenge is to maintain that same level of harmony that has allowed us to get to this point, even though the natives are a little restless. Let's not get worried about that. Let's just go ahead and do the work that we are here to do. And so with that, I thank you for the work that you have done. I thank you for the work that you will do. And I wish everyone Godspeed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Congressman. Appreciate it very much. Former Senator Ronald Ramsey is with us today as well. Glad to have you present. Thank you very, very much. Chair recognizes Senator from the 12th to present the bill. Very distinguished Senator from Albany.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 844 is not necessarily a simple bill. This bill is for the brave men and women who put their lives on the line daily for our public safety. House Bill 844. This legislation would update language in the fire insurance premium tax to reflect the accurate name of the fire rating schedule for the Georgia Firefighters Pension Fund and specify that legal action can only be brought against the funds in the Superior Court where the fund is managed. And that's, in simple terms, what the bill does. If there aren't any questions, I will yield the well.
There are no questions, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Is there objection? Grant the report of committee which fail pass the bill. Chair is none. Report of committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair is none. Main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Questions on the pass the bill. All those in favor of the bill vote aye. Those opposed no. Secretary unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, MC Rex Constitution majority, is therefore adopted. Now we'll take up the appropriations budget. Secretary will read House Bill 751.
House Bill 751 by Representatives Ralston of the 7th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to make and provide appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2016 and ending June 30th, 2017, to make and provide such appropriations for the operation of state government, its departments, boards, bureaus, commissions, institutions, and other agencies for the university system, common schools, counties, municipalities, and political subdivisions, for all other governmental activities, projects, and undertakings authorized by law, and for all leases, contracts, agreements, and grants authorized by law to provide for the control and administration of funds, to provide an effective date, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee of the Senate on Appropriations recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted by Senator Hill IV. Mr. President, the Senate Appropriations Committee offers the following substitute to House Bill 751, a bill to be entitled an act to make and provide appropriations for the state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2016 and ending June 30, 2017, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 4th to present the appropriations budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members of the Senate. The 2017 general budget totals $23.79 billion. I want to tell you a little bit about how we reached that total and give you a little bit of information, because sometimes numbers get covered with a wide swath, and people will say this is the biggest budget ever, and it has funds that are, largest tax increase in history. You hear things, people say things, and so let me just give you the numbers and tell you where I think we are, and it might put it in perspective for you. The FY17 budget is built on approximately 4.3% growth, which is a very moderate level of growth. And this is over the FY16 amended revenue estimate. The budget contains about $655 million in new transportation appropriations as a result of House Bill 170. So if you take that off, you're looking at just barely over $23 billion. Additionally, included in that is $157 million of the hotel motel fees and highway impact fees that are allocated to transportation as well. This total of new funds from transportation also includes a transfer from existing funds in the Treasury of about $180 million. That is the fourth penny of the sales tax on fuel that we shifted as a result of House Bill 170. So those are existing funds that we took out of existing budget and transferred to transportation as well. So, in my opinion, this is my opinion, when I do my grocers on the back of a paper sack math, there will be appropriated to transportation in this budget about $632 million in new sources of transportation revenue. Also, for the first time, we're now creeping over $1 billion in lottery revenues that are being devoted, of course, to the Hope Scholarship, Hope Grants, and to pre-K. So that kind of puts the big picture in perspective for you. This morning, I'm going to try to move expeditiously and highlight about 10 areas where we believe that the state budget meets the needs and challenges that are facing the citizens of Georgia. And I'm going to explain how this budget, this Senate budget, addresses those needs. Now, a number of these are agrees with the governor and with the House or with both. And their initiatives, in addition to that, are initiatives that the Senate has introduced that are tied to our priorities. If you look at the talking points handout that's on your desk, I'll show it to you. This has a partial list of most everything that's added to or agreed to in the budget. So you can flip through there and see in each department and see in each area the funds that were added or changed, the budget was changed. The reason I point that out is I went through there and counted in this document 86 agrees with the governor, the House, or with both. So not every, we don't claim credit for every good thing that's in that budget for sure. We tried, and in many cases, we agreed with what the governor had done, agreed with what the House had done, and when the House made a change we liked it, we agreed with it. So in the end, we don't think there's a substantial difference between the two budgets. As always, education comes first, and this budget appropriates $8.91 billion for K-12 education. Of course, the education also includes in that money $413 million in lottery funds. That's an addition to the $8.91 billion. So when you add that to it, you're over $9 billion in total funds for K-12 education. Now, included in this new K-12 funding is $424 million in new funds for enrollment growth and for austerity reductions that are focused on providing raises for teachers. Additionally, the House and Senate agreed and funded a 3% raise for non-certified school employees. Now, those are school nutrition employees, school bus drivers, and school nurses. So if someone asks you, did we take care of the school bus drivers and lunchroom workers? We did. They're getting the raise as well. You may have heard from your school system about vocational equipment for your middle school or high school, something called CTAE grants. The House put $4.145 million in bonds. That's item 353.09 in the back of your budget for these grants, 4.145. The Senate put in a transfer and other cash totaling $3.5 million for the same purpose. That's item 163.8. To total $7.645 million for the CTAE grants. So there's a list of those schools out that are looking for these grants, and I've talked to several of you who have been contacted by your schools about those grants. So we believe we have funded pretty close to the level that they will need to be funded. There's also in the back of your budget in the bond package, as I mentioned, some $240 million in bonds for school construction statewide, as well as an increase from the governor's number in the number of school buses that agreed to by the House and Senate. Secondly, another important Senate priority is security, both physical and internet security. In this age of cyber terrorism and attack threats from around the world, nothing is more important than working to increase security in our state. Now, let me just stop a second and tell you how much we value and appreciate the work of the Standing Committee Public Safety Chairman this year and the legislation that he has handled, from the senator from the 6th, also from the 7th, also the recent work by the senator from the 56th, the subcommittee chair who's worked in this area as well. Combined with the leadership of the majority leader, the Senate has joined with the governor and the House and made some definite steps to increase the security and well-being of Georgians. The Senate budget for the GBI will propose increasing the number of crime-solving scientists to 5. That's the new number, who will work in areas like DNA testing. That's item 218.6. Right below it on item 219.5, we additionally propose increasing the number of GBI investigators by 24 rather than the 20 proposed by the governor and the House. Additionally, there are 2 new analyst positions that are added to work in the Georgia Information Sharing and Analysis Center. They will analyze and investigate criminal threats and assist with cybersecurity intelligence. In bonds, planning funds have been added for a new investigative division building to house the Georgia Information Sharing and Analysis Center. This is when the FBI moves to a smaller facility in a new location. So the two can continue to work together. They're in the same building now, so they can continue to work together to protect Georgians. Another top priority of the Senate is to support access to health care for rural citizens, which includes a number of initiatives to promote better care and health. The Senate supports the continued work of the Rural Hospital Stabilization Committee and restored the funding of $500,000 for charity clinics statewide who provide a very basic safety net for the uninsured. We also continue to help equip EMS vehicles with telemedicine equipment. And in item 96.10, the Senate has added funds for a hospital add-on payment for newborn delivery and hospital admission, then after delivery for admission, and this would be in rural counties. It's also a Senate initiative on 96.11 that appropriates $300,000 to start a patient-centered medical home grant program where providers are reimbursed for certification, which will provide coordinated care across providers, focusing on a certification process which ultimately will prevent unnecessary duplication and testing in rural areas. $200,000 was also added to the Georgia Board for Physician Workforce for a new loan repayment program for physician assistants and advanced practice nurses willing to practice in rural areas. Additionally, $200,000 was added to a House transfer for a South Georgia rural residency program. This residency focuses on Colquitt County and is on item 103.4 and 103.5. Supporting job creation efforts is a top priority for the Senate. Included in our budget on item 280.2 is $10 million for Invest Georgia, which will, through the Advanced Technology and Development Center at Georgia Tech, take incubator companies with new ideas and products and keep them in Georgia, creating jobs, an effort that's been led by the Lieutenant Governor. The item also includes $588,000 for ATDC for 5 positions and related work activities to aid startup companies to plan and transition. One of the real weaknesses in Georgia has been the lack of startup capital to keep great ideas and great companies that are just starting up, keep them in Georgia, because when they begin to become companies out in the marketplace, they need startup capital. If they don't get it here, they'll go to Massachusetts or wherever they can get it. This effort will create good jobs long-term in the state. We agreed with the House and the Governor on some new funds for marketing in the Global Commerce Division, but limited to $200,000 for marketing in this year of music. To facilitate oversight and transparency and to assist in directing funding, the Senate has kept the new transportation funds in separate programs of capital maintenance, construction, and administration. After as long as 8 years in some instances, the FY 2017 budget is providing a catch-up year for raises for state employees and for many Medicaid providers. And the Senate has joined the efforts of the governor and the House in that endeavor, with 3% merit increases for state employees and some increases for many Medicaid providers as well. Additionally, we agreed with the House to provide first-year funding for a 3% one-time payment to ERS retirees. We think we may have differed from the House in how we're applying it. We used the board's policy in capping that benefit level. There's approximately $26 million in appropriations to provide increases for select codes for primary and OBGYN providers for Medicaid patients to bring them closer to the 2014 Medicare reimbursement level. Very important for primary care and OBGYN services. The Senate budget continues to show compassion and caring for the disabled, for children, and for seniors in numerous ways. There's $7.3 million to fund 175 additional child service workers in DFACs as part of a 3-year plan to bring down caseloads. There's funding for 10 additional kinship navigators who assist grandparents or other relatives who have custody or caregiving responsibilities to maneuver the complicated and confusing sometimes child welfare system. There are a total of 15 strategically located navigators around the state with this addition. There's $49.3 million appropriated for increases for out-of-home care to reflect the growth in that system for foster care. The small increase for CASA, the court-appointed special advocates for children who go to court to represent children's interests. The Senate also agreed to a $5 per hour increase for special assistant attorneys general who will handle child support cases and other legal work for local DFACS offices. I'm told those lawyers hadn't had an increase in a number of years. We agreed with the House add-on to fund a 3% increase in the nursing home reimbursement rate, and the Senate added funds to give a 3% increase to those few nursing homes with ventilator patients. On item 192.6, the Senate agreed with the governor and the House to fund 11 new adult protective caseworkers. This is the final year of a 3-year plan for 33 additional caseworkers to care for seniors and to prevent abuse. Additionally, the Senate increased the House's add for a total of 167 slots for at-home services to move seniors out of nursing homes. That is a total savings for the state, of course. For every nursing home patient, we can relocate back in a home. The Senate doubled the increase the House added for Meals on Wheels, a very popular program. We doubled that increase to $500,000, which will add an additional 28,735 meals for seniors, and I'm told these are all delivered by volunteers. The governor, the House, and the Senate all three agreed to add 180 additional eligibility benefit workers to process applications and renewals for food stamps and for services, utilizing the new integrated eligibility system. We agreed to a small increase of $1,000 in the allocation to each county in the state for the Family Connection Program, a level that is still below pre-recession levels. With the ongoing threat of disease and other health hazards from around the world, the Public Health Department has never been more important. The senator from the 55th, I believe, Senator Unterman, I'll break the rule and call her name to be sure I have that correct, 45th, I beg your pardon, has led the way in promoting the needs of the Department of Public Health. And in her subcommittee request this year, an additional 4% salary increase was included for public health registered nurses to a total increase of 10% for those nurses. We've had tremendous turnover in the past couple of years because of that, and everybody knows what the marketplace is for nurses. Also added in the Senate version of the budget were increases for licensed practical nurses as well who work for public health departments. Additionally, the Senate added to a House add for a total of $2 million to implement the statewide Positive Alternatives for Pregnancy and Parenting Grant Program, a result of Senate Bill 308. The Senate has been a leader in helping sustain local public libraries through the years. Along with the House, we have added an MR&R fund over the past few years. It's now $2 million annually for local libraries. A fund to replace computers that's now also $2 million annually. All these were added by the Senate and the House over the past few years. And between the two bodies in this budget, we have funded the construction of the top 3 priorities in the library priority list for new libraries in this budget. That's limited to $2 million per each, and the rest of the funds come from local governments. Additionally, the Senate agreed with the House and funded a books and materials fund of $3.735 million based on a formula of 35 cents per capita. And this is a new addition as well that will benefit your local library in your hometown. And lastly, we should never forget those who've served this country and whose sacrifice keeps free the very ground that we stand upon. In the Senate budget are some reminders of that service. Again, this year we are supporting the National Infantry Museum at Fort Benning with a $100,000 investment. Secondly, to continue to recognize the forgotten service of Vietnam veterans, there's a small appropriation for the Department of Veteran Services to continue the Certificate of Honor program. They tell me, and I have not attended one, but they tell me it's a most moving program where a Certificate of Honor is presented to a Vietnam veteran. So we're supporting that program. Additionally, the Senate bond package includes $33 million to begin the renovation of the Milledgeville War Veterans Home for a subacute rehab therapy unit to serve Georgia's brain injury veterans who are returning home. In the bond package listed in the back of the budget and in the back of the talking points listed on your desk, you will note Senate additions, some matches with the House, and a few partial fundings. In conference, we hope to work with the House to reprioritize projects and serve as many members as possible. But I will tell you, they'll have to be fully funded for us to include them in the final edition of the completed budget. I would remind you that the governor has set a $50 million cap for each body for capital outlay. So as a result, many projects for which planning has been appropriated still await funding. There's possibly $200 million or more of these projects, many of them in Regents and Technical TCSG, that await capital outlay funding who are doing the planning right now or have the planning completed. That is a growing need that is going to have to be addressed. Let me conclude this presentation and trying to be as painless as possible. But I couldn't conclude without thanking the subcommittee chairs, the members of the Appropriation Committee, and all who worked to complete the Senate edition of the budget. I want to salute the Senate conferees, the President Pro Tem and the Majority Leader and their staff, and the Lieutenant Governor's Office, who have all contributed to this efforts. Whether you agree or don't agree with some of the items, I would say this: it is a collaborative process. It's not my budget; it's our budget, and I think it reflects many of the needs that the Senate has pledged to address. And of course, nothing could happen without the diligence and hard work of the Senate Budget and Evaluation Office. Many of those analysts are here with us, as well as Melody Debussy, who heads it up. They tell me that they have answered questions on budget and revenue from every member of the Senate, all 56 members during this session. So that's quite a challenge, and I just salute them for their hard work on that. And then on the subject of you can't please everybody, I would remind you of what a previous appropriations chairman used to say, that on the same day a farmer prays for rain, a golfer prays for sunshine. So will never be able to satisfy everybody on the same day. Mr. President, that concludes what I would consider some highlights in the budget. I'd be happy to try to address any questions.
All right, it's one of my favorite quotes, Senator. Appreciate you sharing that with the body. Chair recognizes Senator in the 49th for a question. Oh. There are no questions, Senator. Sorry, no questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would urge the adoption of House Bill 71 by substitute, and appreciate your attention and indulgence today. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 41st to speak to the bill. 41st.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, as always, I have to compliment the senator from the 4th from a personal and a professional standard. He sets high marks that I think all of us appreciate in his quality of character and in the dedication he does to his job. Now, as always, we discuss and put our input into the budget, and we get some of what we want, and we don't get others what we want. I'm a little reminded of the last election where one of the candidates was attacked because he voted for the budget, even though he's had problems with it. Therefore, I can't come to this chamber and vote for the budget, which I plan to do, without pointing at least some of the things that I wish were different and I think that can be improved on. Every member in this chamber probably feels there are some things that can be improved on, and that's part of the process. Even the chair or other high members of this party, this body may think there could have been improvements or here or there, very subjective decision making. But one of the most important areas that I think we need to address, important to all citizens of this state, and one of the most important charges that we have is public education, K through 12. And I'm here just kind of warning or alerting you to what to look for in the future. You know, we look at this budget and we hear that we're cutting greatly the QB funding formula deficit, that we're cutting into the shortfalls and austerity cuts of the past. Well, I do commend the governor and the Senate Appropriation Committee for putting money that they recommend for teacher raises, a significant amount of money that will hopefully go toward improving teacher salaries. And we often talk about that money coming from the austerity cuts, you know, that we're down to $166 million in austerity cuts. Let me point out to you that this money is recommended toward pay increases, but it's not going in as part of the QB funding formula. Over many of the last years, we have added money recommended for increases in pay, but it wasn't part of the basic funding formula QBE. If we had been putting each of these recommended raises or money intended for raises, or if the local monies that some school systems have put up that have gone to raises had actually been in the base of QBE, the austerity cuts or the shortfall of a fully funded QBE would be much higher than what we portray it today. So I want you to be aware of that. Just as you hear the catchphrase, someday we fully funded QBE, that because of the way we're doing things, we're probably not making that equal to what it was intended when QBE was funded and planned years ago. Plus, we must recognize and inform our constituents that although we're putting money in for raises, not part of the funding formula, but for raises, we also have cuts to education and some monies that are coming out of the backside of public education, things like student transportation, and some cuts that local school systems have to handle, and it comes out of their pie. It might not be part of QB. The point of this is to say we're not nearly where we need to be in making sure every Georgia student has the kind of education that we would want. And you know, I graduated high school in '77, many of you since then, but schools are finding more challenges today than ever before. Single parent families, children coming to school with somewhat higher levels of physical ailments or psychological challenges that are causing more and more burdens on our school system. You know, we should be looking at enhancing areas to improve education and our students' quality within the educational process and not looking at ways to cutting and cutting. This session we saw ourselves try to pass a constitutional amendment by ad valorem taxes. We passed another one that would put automatic tax cuts in the future if we're at a certain budget level. We have a bill on giving breaks to people who sporting events, tickets, and doing another sales tax holiday. I caution each of you to know that our charge is to make sure Georgia's children have the best quality of life and best future that we can make possible for them. And that we should hold dear the fact that we need to fund education at levels that get them where they want to be. And while I commend, again, the governor for adding money for the teachers who devote their professional lives and some of their more personal parts of their lives to making the lives of Georgia's children better, we must and we should be doing more and looking into the future to make sure we do more. Also, in the higher education mode, I want you to be aware that the high tuition increases of previous years is not a mystical creation of the Board of Regents. It is a creation of the Georgia legislature, who in past years, because of various reasons, have not committed the same level of general fund budget for higher education in the state as it has in the past. And that by doing so, we move farther away from the dreams of Zell Miller when he created the Hope Scholarship, or from other earlier Georgians that wanted a strong public education system where it was affordable to nearly all of Georgia's students. These tuition increases have gone up. Hope has been reduced for many people. And we need to continue to work in a bipartisan fashion to address those concerns for Georgia students and children, families, and for the future. So, members of the Senate, I will be voting for the budget. Some may not. But we do not need to lose focus on the fact that the future of many Georgians still can be made better if we commit ourselves to improving the funding of our public education, both K through 12 and our higher education system. And it is worth the investment. Having a well-educated workforce creates jobs, it creates high-paying jobs, and that helps all of us. So it is worth the investment. Worth the investment to make sure the children growing up in Georgia feel they have the hope to go to public education and know that they have a chance to afford higher education and have a life that they can create a family, have children, and move forward with prosperity. So, ladies and gentlemen, I again thank the Senator from the 4th for hearing my concerns during the budget process, and ask all of you to hold in your heart that we don't lose sight that we all love tax cuts, we all love saying we cut these fees or this or that, but don't lose sight that Georgia's children need the investment in their educational processes to make this state great. I yield the will.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 39th.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I return to a policy, to an issue that I have come to this well on several occasions, many occasions since 2011, when the Supreme Court ruled that it was optional for states to do Medicaid expansion. Ever since that Supreme Court decision, I have found myself to this well, imploring the state's leadership, imploring the governor to do Medicaid expansion. And some issues are both moral issues and fiscal issues. This is the case with the issue of Medicaid expansion. It is a moral issue, and it is the right thing to do for that reason. If that was the only reason, it would be the right reason to do Medicaid expansion, because every study that we look at says that Medicaid expansion would save hundreds of lives. The first study that I looked at was a study out of the Harvard Medical School that said Medicaid expansion in Georgia would save somewhere between 900 and 1,500 lives a year. If that was the only reason to do Medicaid expansion, that would be the right reason, and we ought to do it, because it would save the lives of our neighbors. It would save the lives of our constituents. If there is no other reason we come down here to this Gold Dome, it is because we should be protecting the lives of our constituents. So if that was the only reason to do Medicaid expansion, that would be a great reason. But there's a fiscal, and I appreciate the chair of the Appropriations Committee for his continued hard work and his inclusiveness. We appreciate him for his hard work. He is here late at night, burning the midnight oil, and on weekends, so we appreciate his hard work. And when he says from this well that job creation is a central theme that this Senate takes into consideration as we deliberate the budget. When he said that just a few minutes ago, I said, that's right. And Medicaid expansion would do that. Medicaid expansion is beyond being a moral issue. It is an economic development issue. It is an economic development issue because there are studies, and you could go online, you can go to the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute website, and you will learn that it will bring in, if we were to do Medicaid expansion, remember, 100% federal and 90% federal. So this money that would go into Medicaid expansion would come from Washington. I, as a Georgian, as someone who loves this state dearly and completely, I am, should I say, angered at the idea that we're sending Georgian money to New Jersey, California, and other places. I want that money to stay here in Georgia and help save the lives of my constituents. You know, New Jersey, let New Jersey take care of itself. I'm a Georgian and I love this state. Let's do it for Georgia. But beyond that, studies show that Medicaid expansion will bring in about $8.2 billion a year for 10 years. $8.2 billion for each of 10 years. Is this not the type of opportunity that Georgia should use to grow our economy? If job creation is our priority, then let's do it. And pump in $80 million over 10 years and create tens, not thousands, but tens of thousands of jobs for Georgians. Let's do that. So this budget, and I couldn't leave the well without telling you that Medicaid expansion would bring health care to 650,000 Georgians. It would help Grady Hospital in DeKalb and Fulton County, but guess what? It would help your rural hospitals, many of which are on the cusp, even as we speak, on the cusp of closing. Medicaid expansion makes good moral sense, but it makes good fiscal sense. And we ought to do it. In a budget that does not include Medicaid expansion is a budget that falls short of what we could be doing. A budget, at the end of the day, tells us about our moral self. It tells us about who we are and what we really value. A budget without Medicaid expansion is a budget that shows we don't care as much as we ought to. So I implore you, and I'm going to vote for this budget, and I'll have more to say on final passage, because it includes some good things. But we could do better. We should do better And I look forward to working with you for the rest of this session and over the interim until next year to make sure that we do better by expanding Medicaid. Mr. President, I yield the well unless there are questions from my thoughtful colleagues, and I'd be glad to take any and every question that's offered to me.
No question, Senator. Thank you. Chair recognizes Senator the 26th, gentleman from Bibb County, to speak to the budget.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the Senate. You know, I don't know whether this is a kiss up to Jack Hill or not, but I'm here to tell him I thank him for the hard work he's done. But the other thing of having a listening ear, as I look on page 238, I looked at $4.2 million for bonds that combines Middle Georgia State University with the Eastman Aviation Program that brings it all to one big heading. And so I have to thank him for that. And then when I go to page 69, I look at $24 million for Mercer Med School and $23 million for Morehouse Med School. We need doctors, and we especially need them in the rural areas. And then, of course, on page 61 and 62, which I'm the co-chair of the Rural Stabilization Committee, the amount of money that stays in the budget on those hospitals that we are trying to make sure don't go under. But it's not enough money. I mean, you got to have a sales tax base, number one, in these communities. And what we're talking about is 25-bed access hospitals. And things have changed. Of course, Medicaid expansion would help. I know we disagree on that. But, you know, as one would say, well, how do you get the money? We make it. We got the print press in Washington. If we need some more, we'll print it up. You know, but part of that problem is, how do we deal with rural Georgia? How do we take rural Georgia and put them on even keel when it comes to health care? We found out that we really can't fund all of these access hospitals, number one. And we tried to include some more. I mean, there's some language in there that says the Speaker of the House and the Lieutenant Governor would try to decide to try to help some more. But the problem is about money, y'all, real money. And what you look at when you go to these rural communities, those access hospitals are probably the biggest employers in those counties. So not only when you close them down, what you end up doing is cut out jobs as well as economic development. No corporation or big company looks at small communities when they got to look at what the workman's comp would be in case something happened to that personnel, or health care for their employees. Now, one of the things that the committee has done, and I give the chairman credit, I've even talked to Dean Burke, the gentleman from the 11th, about certain things, and he hadn't been here that long, but he has delved into some of these medical issues. One of the things that I would do is ask the members of the conference committee, when you get to conference, I did not see an increase for dentists who do Medicaid. They've not had a raise in about 15 years. I would ask you to take a hard look at these CMOs who determine what will be paid, how is paid, and whether or not we can go back to the days when we used to operate our own health insurance. It was a lot better. The last thing is, every day I had to take a shot. That's how I live. I'm a diabetic. But somehow, Blue Cross Blue Shield, who handles our insurance, and then when you go to them, they tell you you must go to Express Script. And Express Script handles the formulary. And since they have taken over, this little thing went from $80 to $115 that I've got to take every day that I live unless somebody comes up with a cure for diabetes. Now, what this is, it's called Novolog. It's a fast-acting insulin. And basically what you do, you prick your finger and see where your sugar level is, and then you want to get it down in range, down to 125, 130. Well, there's also an insulin called Humalog, supposed to do the same thing that Novolog does, but it's made by a different pharmaceutical. Express Script wants you to take Humalog. Well, about 3 years ago, I took it. It didn't work for me. We ran all kind of tests and went and got prior approval, and they still wouldn't put it on the formulary. So when I was on the high side, I talked about them every day in the well until they finally put it on there. Here, we need to understand that doctors prescribe our medicine based on whatever medical condition we have. Express Script, when you call them, you go to your card and look on the back and you call customer service, and then you get to run around from one department to the other. So I would ask the conference committee to look and see about auditing these CMOs who are handling our insurance and Express Script. They get over $700 million of rebates. They're supposed to go into our so-called health program. But yet and still, I can't take Humalog because it won't work for me. The doctor said it won't work, but yet and still, Express Script said either you take Humalog or basically you die. And so I think I'm fortunate that I can pay for the Novolog, but at the same time, my body will not react to Humalog like the Novolog. So when y'all go to conference, and I think it's a legitimate question about our health insurance in this state, is that doctors prescribe for us, but yet Express Script will determine what medicine you can take because they are getting $700 million worth of rebates. And I think the conference committee needs to look at it. I think you need to look at the CMOs. I think you need to have them audited so that you're knowing exactly what they're doing and how they are changing health policy in this state rather than the legislature determining what will happen. Again, I want to thank the chairman. He's worked hard on it. I basically thank all of them. I went and talked to all of them. But we are not out the woods with these rural hospitals. We're not out. Southwest Georgia has the third highest insurance costs in the United States. No hospitals, pharmacies, what have you. So we're going to have to work something out. The telemedicine is good. The chairman looked at it, so we are taking some rural counties in there, and they're going to get access through a trauma physician. They don't have hospitals. The other thing, Mr. Chairman, is broadband. I think we can get it done when you head the appropriation process. I think you can call them in and tell them we need to get it done, because in rural Georgia does not need to be treated as a third world country. It's where we get our products, our farm animals, our food, our milk, trees, and everything else. And what you do is when you don't provide health care in rural Georgia, you are basically drying up those rural counties. So with that, Mr. President and members of the Senate, I plan to vote for the appropriations bill. It is not like I want And I guess, you know, you dabble here and you dabble there. But in the long run, you can't satisfy everybody. But I do think that this body, this deliberative body, can make a difference in rural health care. What we have to do is change the way that we operate. And again, find a way that we can get monies into these rural hospitals, because the majority of their clientele don't have the ability to pay. And that's basically what is drying them up. So again, Mr. Chairman, I would ask you that when y'all get to conference, to talk about auditing these CMOs, and also to talk to Express on our health insurance about them making the determination what medicine we take other than the doctor.
No question, Senator.
Thank you very much.
Question is on the adoption of the committee.